Now, sometimes you come across a government policy regulation that simply makes no sense when you've put it across the real world. Now, what about this? Trained teachers here on working tourist visas, so they are foreign teachers trained in whatever country they're from, they're required under old visa requirements to do 88 days of farm work if they want to stay for a second year of that visa. So you have teachers sorting potatoes, which is an important job in itself, but you have classrooms where there's not enough teachers to teach the children. This is a particular problem in regional and rural Australia. Now, one MP, the independent member for Indi, which is the seat up around Wangaratta in northeast Victoria, Helen Haines, is trying to sort this out. She joins me now. Great to talk to you again. How have we got to this point where you've got classrooms, Helen, with not enough teachers to teach the children, and they're out there working, sorting potatoes? It doesn't make any sense, does it?
Hello, Steve, and lovely to join you this evening. Look, Steve, what we have is a jobs and skills shortage right across rural and regional Australia. That includes in agriculture, where we desperately need workers, and it also includes education, where we desperately need teachers. And herein lies the intersect that we experienced in Wodonga, whereby the principal of Wodonga Secondary College made contact with me to tell me that at the time he was 11 teachers short. He had 3 Irish teachers working there, but under the visa that they were on, they were required to go and leave the school and spend their 88 days working in agriculture.
Well, as you say, Helen, we want to look after the agriculture sector, but surely we can chew gum and walk at the same time. We can have trained teachers teaching, which is what their expertise is, and we can have other, visa holders who've come here to work and to travel to do the working agriculture. You shouldn't force someone out of a job like teaching, surely, to go and do something where we can find others.
Well, here's the rub, really, Steve, is that we have one of the most complicated visa systems in the world. There are multiple visa streams. It's extremely difficult for people to navigate where they should be on what visa. What we saw in Wodonga were teachers who were under a visa that really didn't allow them to maintain their teaching work. We need to simplify the visa situation in Australia. There are just hundreds of visas of all different types. I met with the Home Affairs Minister just last week, and she explained to me the complexity of the visa system and the work that she's doing and her department's doing to unravel this and make sure that if someone, for example, a teacher in Ireland, wants to come to work in Australia or holiday in Australia, that they get the right visa in the first place. I really support that. We have, though, as I said, a skills shortage across the regions. So it's not just visas and international teachers or agricultural workers we need to be getting here. We need to have incentives for local people to want to come and live and work and enjoy the fantastic lifestyle you can have in the regions. So teachers are one of those groups, and I would say to the government, in fact, I've said to the government, I'd like to see policies that attract and retain teachers, such as what the government is doing right now to attract and retain doctors and nurse practitioners.
Well, I love your part of the world. And I mean, I would think if you're trained to be a teacher and, you're just starting out, you might be starting a new family. I mean, what better place to go and live than somewhere like, Wangaratta or Albury, Wodonga, where at least you can get a roof over your head in terms of buying real estate a bit cheaper than Sydney and Melbourne. And when I was growing up in South Australia, Helen, teachers did that. They got their teaching degree and they then signed up to go and do, I think it was 2 or 3 years working in the regions.
Yeah, many of my contemporaries at school did that too, actually, Steve. So there were a set of policies in the 70s and 80s that were addressing a very similar skills shortage. I think it's important to state too that while we have a shortage of teachers, the amount of pressure that it places on the teachers that are already there is significant. So we need to look after the workforce that we've got. Number one, we need to have policies that are designed to encourage young rural people to enter into the teaching profession, provide the support they need to complete their degrees, and have policies that really encourage them to stay in rural and regional Australia. So that's work that needs to be done. When Mr Hilditch came to me from Wodonga, secondary college, the first thing I did was go to the immigration minister and said, look, please explain to me what could be going on here. And that's where I really learnt the complexity of the visas and that quite possibly these three teachers should have been on a different kind of visa to begin with. From there, I went and spoke to the Education Minister, Jason Clare, and talked to him about the challenges we have in the regions and some ideas that I had around how we might mitigate this. So there's a multi-pronged approach here, but I think this case has shone a light on the complexity of the visa application and program in Australia, and I'm pleased that the federal government are doing a review of this.
I suspect you're wearing out the carpet in the ministerial wing. Good on you, and that's what independents are there to do. Just before you go, I reckon the farmers might be banging on your door shortly, because under changes to some of these ag visas, farmers are going to be forced to hire workers for 30 hours a week under the Pacific Island Australia Labour Mobility Scheme. What an awful name that is. And that means that, you know, you might have maybe 10 hours work or 14 hours or 15 hours work, but you have to pay someone for 30 hours. I think the farmers are going to find that difficult to deal with as well, aren't they?
Well, Steve, I'm a very common sense person. I grew up on a farm. I spent my early career working as a nurse. I like to see practical solutions, and I like to make sure that the people who are engaged with the problem have a say in what that solution might be. So thus far, my farming community haven't approached me about that particular program or that particular problem, but I'll be reaching out to them to just see how it does affect them. What I do know is late last year, I went to Fiji and I spoke with many people there who are part of the Pacific Island Labour Mobility Program, the PALM program. What I know is that that program is incredibly important to those communities. Those remittances that come back to Australia are welcomed over there. We have to get the policy settings right. We absolutely do. We need to make sure that this works for the farmers and that we have good ethical policies that look after those workers and their families too. I think we're able to do both things if we're sensible and we listen and we're able to be flexible.